Hello guys, and welcome again to StarCraft, where I go over the missions and how to get the achievements. Today's mission is the Spear of Adun, and the achievements are the Spear of Adun. Complete the mission. Warp Tour. Warp in 5 units within 10 seconds. Sprinter Cell. Activate the power cells in 15 minutes or less on normal. This is in the Legacy of the Void campaign. This mission isn't too complicated. It's very, I wouldn't say simple, just pretty average in what it does. Here they're talking about their ship that they're going to try to activate and get off the planet to escape Amon's incursions, I guess you would call it. Blah blah blah, we need to leave. Blah blah blah, you need to leave. Those are the power nodes that you need to activate. I believe there's 3 or 4 of them, I'm not sure. Basically all you have to do is clear the Zerg creep away from the power node to activate it. This was a pretty interesting mission because it was it introduced the cannons. And, well, it didn't introduce the cannons, it introduced the battery, the shield battery, which was a very useful upgrade to the Protoss stuff, especially for turtle players. And if you're not familiar, a turtle is basically where you build a bunch of defensive structures and fend off attacks before you go aggressive. Also, a good thing about this mission, or well, the Protoss campaign, is you get to use the Spear of Adun, which lets you warp in pylons. For free. But yeah, like I said, this mission isn't too hard. It's just more or less grindy, sorta. Once you place down your cannons and your batteries, after you get a good defense going, then you can start working on your troops. I forgot the word there. I do that more and more. It's like I've played this for probably since it came out, or since StarCraft 1 came out, and I still sit there and go, what is the name of that? Oh, it's a drone. What is the name of that? Oh, it's a pylon. What is the name of that? Or I'll sit there and they'll go, yeah, you know that thing? Yeah, it's like the Protoss thing, you know? It's the building that makes the things that, they gather resources. You mean the Nexus? Yeah, that thing! The thing that's been in the game since the very beginning? Yeah, that thing! How do you not know these names yet? Get back to me on that. I warped in my first unit on this mission. Yay! As far as warping in, as far as army goes, I kind of bounce back and forth between stalkers and zealots, because it's good to have a melee line and then a range line of assaulting, which is one advantage I think that the Protoss and the Zerg have over the Terrans. Is the Terrans usually only have they only have ranged units, whereas the Zerg and the Protoss both have ranged and melee units. And also, the Protoss have a benefit over the Zerg because they have superior air quality units. So it's back to that whole papers, rock, scissors thing. It's just like the Protoss have a benefit to the Zerg because they have a lot more flying units than the Zerg do, and their flying units are better than the Zerg's flying units. But the Terrans, all of their units can attack flying units, and they have very good defense against flying units. I think the only thing Terran-wise that can't attack flying units is stuff like you have your Hellions, but they are specifically derived to take care of Zerg, you know? And then you have, trying to think, there are some other things like some of the barracks defensive units, stuff like that, can only attack ground stuff, but it's just like, those aren't too difficult, you know? Yeah, I warped that in out here because I thought it was going to require a pylon to activate, but turns out it'll activate on its own. It doesn't need the pylon. Yeah, make sure you take the void prisms out, or else you'll be dealing with a lot of units. Also, a cool thing is if you destroy the void prism while it's warping in units, if it's destroyed and those units haven't finished, it'll destroy those units as well. But yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the rock, paper, scissors thing. Basically, the difference, the advantages that the Terrans have over the Protoss is their ranged units are very effective against the Protoss flying units. And like I said, the Protoss have very good flying units, which makes them good against the Zerg, which don't have very good flying units, but they have a lot of ground forces. And they don't have a lot of ways to dealing with air units. So stuff like, I think they have the Hydralisks, the Queens, as far as ground forces go. I think that's it for dealing with aerial units, aside from, you know, your generals like Zagara and Kerrigan and stuff like that. And as far as flying units, if they have the corruptors, they have the kind of dragonfly looking thing. I can't remember what the hell its name is. And they have the scourge, but the scourge really aren't economically advantageous. I mean, it'd be really good if, you know, one scourge, because the scourge are basically suicide units, but they cost like 25 minerals to 50 minerals and 100 to 150 gas. So it's like, ew. And they only deal about the same damage as a Zerg, but they're a suicide unit, so it's like, I don't think I like them because they're just way too resource investment heavy, you know? But if you're playing Zagara in the co-op campaigns, they're not that bad because she reduces the cost of the minerals, she reduces the cost of the Vestian gas, so it's only like, they're basically a Zerg cost the same as a, they basically cost the same as a Zerg unit at that point, just with like 25 gas. But yeah, basically they're banelings of the sky is what they are. But yeah, like I was saying, the Zerg don't have very good air defense, so it's kind of hit or miss on that. And also the cool thing about this mission is you will find these abandoned warp gates robotics facilities and stuff like that throughout the map. And the cool thing about that is when you put a pylon next to it and give it power, it'll free units that were trapped inside that building, and you can then select that building and use it to produce units of your own. So that's what makes this mission kind of fun, is the fact that there are abandoned buildings scattered throughout the map, and if you activate them, you get free units and you get a free building. So yeah, as you can tell, getting that warp in 5 units within 10 seconds achievement is very easy. Especially mid-game in this mission. It's just like, oh, well, I'll just like warp in like 10 zealots at once. Especially when you get like multiple gateways and they have that stacking warp-in tech. So, because I do believe each gateway, I think, can warp in 3 units at its max charge. So when you have like 4 gateways, you have 12 units you can warp in at once. So it can be advanced. That's one of the main reasons why Protoss, they're slow rollers, but once you get them going, they can be a very advantageous race. They're very late game in their tech. Now, there are people that can force that tech out early game, but it takes a lot of micromanagement. Or at least a good defense in the early game, so this way you can stave off the Terrans or rushes, and then until you can get into that tech. Yeah, the one thing I do like about the Protoss is they are very balanced in their unit types, because their infantry consists of the stalkers, which are the little walker dudes that can attack both ground and air units. The zealots, which they can only attack ground units, but they have a better shield than the stalkers do, and they have a charge that they, basically, whenever they engage in combat, they'll immediately rush in and try to, they'll do a rush attack to that target. See, like that right there. And then the other infantry units they have the High Templar, which they are basically your macro infantry for the Protoss. They have the ability to do what's called feedback, which is if you have a unit that uses energy, like say a ghost or something like that, a High Templar can do a feedback on that unit, and it basically burns that unit for all its unspent energy. And then they also have Psionic Storm, which creates this little AoE effect on the ground, and that's really effective with dealing with Zerglings, Zerg attacks, and even Protoss and Terrans too. At that fact, because if you have a big, like Protoss, it's really bad against because, or really good against because, Protoss strategies usually revolve around what's called the Death Ball, which is basically where you put all your units in this big rolling ball of death, basically. And you just kind of move it across the field, kind of like this. And the thing about the High Templar is, if you drop a couple of storms on that, you can kill 90% of those units with just one High Templar. And that's what makes it really effective. And then, the Stalkers have an ability which is Blink. And what makes Blink good is, after a Stalker blinks, its shield starts regenerating for a short period of time. So it acts as kind of like an extra buffer for when they're in combat. So basically, all you gotta do is, basically run into combat, wait about a second or two as their shields start taking damage, then blink them forward, and their shields will start regenerating. And then just periodically throughout the battle, if the battle's still going on, as soon as that cooldown comes up, blink again and blink again. But back to the High Templar, they have a third ability which is called Merge, which basically, if you have two High Templar, you can force them together, and they make what's called an Archon. And they're basically the heavy infantry unit. And then the last one is the Dark Templar, which basically they're shadow units, they're cloaked units, but they can only deal melee damage. And they have a little kind of warp thing that they do. Whenever they kill an enemy, they can warp to the next enemy, as long as it's within a certain distance, which makes them really, really effective. Alright guys, that's been the Spear of Adun. That was how to get the achievements. If you liked if you like my rambling about the units, give me a like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.